Hey guys, welcome back to Jason and Joni Builds. To those that follow me weekly, I'm back. We took a couple weeks off. I kind of needed to clear my head. We went to Disney, just kind of got away from the Bronco, got away from the shop a little bit, as you guys saw, shot some guns. But I think it's good just every once in a while, just back up a little bit, regroup, get your head around it. I haven't stopped working on it. I've been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but just not videoing. But glad to be back, and we're going to be working on getting our axles prepped to go in our 9-inch rear end. So if you guys haven't subscribed, please do. Give us a thumbs up, and here we go. All right, welcome back. So we're here on the 66 Bronco, and just a little recap. You know, we had the rear end taken apart. I actually did a video setting the rear gears up on our 9-inch third member, and honestly I wasn't quite happy with how I presented it. You know, the gears went in fine, set up fine, but I just didn't feel like it was worthy of me putting that out on YouTube. And there's a lot of people you guys can look up and watch them set up gears. So I left that one out. So my third member's in the housing, so now I'm getting my axles prepped. I wasn't going to replace the axles until this one. So I'll let Joni kind of zoom in. When I removed the bearings, if you can see here, the bearing surface is just all eat up. Well, this is the side when I tore the rear end down that it was full of oil. The drum was full of oil, everything. So there's no way you'll ever seal this. And so I just had to buy new axles. Instead of buying just one axle, I went ahead and bought a new set of Motive gear replacement axles. They're not, you know, racing axles or crawling axles. This is a street Bronco. So I just try to keep in mind the use of this Bronco, and instead of putting $300, $400 axles in this thing, these are basically just stock replacements. So I went ahead and got new bearings for it, and what I'm going to do is show you basically a quick video on how to install the studs and how to remove your old bearings off your old axles, because I need the retainer. And then we'll show pressing on your new bearings if you have a press, or we can talk about other ways of doing it. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is go ahead and remove the bearing. And there's a few different ways of doing this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my grinder and I'm going to split the bearing. That way I can get to the collar a little bit easier, the lock collar. And when I say split, I'm just going to take my grinder and I'm going to cut it here. I'm going to cut it on both sides and get this separated so we can get the outer race off and the bearings out. And then I'll take the grinder and split this, and then we'll take our chisel and basically, if you get this marked pretty good, about 3/4 of the way through or all the way through, you can put a chisel or air chisel on it, and this will actually just break. They're already under, they're hardened steel, so if you give it a good whack, it'll pop loose. So we'll get those pressed off, and we'll get this removed. What I did is I cut two sides. Didn't go all the way through, there's no reason. I made a cut here and a cut there, and that just helps the bearing break. Now I'm just going to use my pneumatic chisel, and if you don't have the pneumatic chisel, you can just use your regular chisel and a hammer. Let's get a little bit warm. Actually, that one popped, the other one didn't. Let me get my hammer. This side I'll just use my hammer. It gets a little bit more force in a hurry. All right, and again, why I did that was so I could get these bearings out of the way, get that upper race out of the way, so I could get in here and cut this lock collar. And we're going to do the same thing once I get it cut down really close. You don't want to nick your shaft, do you? You know, you're trying to protect it. I'm not as concerned with this axle because I've got new ones, but if you're keeping your axles, you really just take your time. And again, you don't have to go all the way through. You just got to get close. Okay, I did the same thing again, basically just a cut on the lock, and I cut the other side in 180 degrees out, you know, on the, just opposing it. And then I'm just gonna take my chisel again, see if it'll pop. I changed to a different chisel, it's moving. I hit it about 4 times, it should have already popped. I think that chisel there has a little bit too wide of a profile. There it goes. See that move in. Alright, so we got that removed. We've got our collar off. And now I'm just going to use my puller. And then we'll put it in the press and then pull the lower race off. You can actually pull this one off the same way. But I'm going to... You risk a little bit more getting to your axle, and with these it's really not going to hurt it because your seal's on the inside and your bearing is sealed. But if you do some of the newer rear ends where you have the seal on the outside, you just have a little bit more of a risk hurting it. So all I'm going to do is just use our puller. We're going to clamp it on. We'll go put it in the press, and we'll push the lower race off. And to all my friends that are going to Super Celebration this week, I wish I could have went. It's just been kind of one thing after another here lately. And I would have felt kind of bad watching all you guys drive off going to do your cruises and me sitting there in a chair. So we'll be there in April and we'll have our Bronco. That's my plan. We'll have this one finished. And we'll be able to come out and hang out and have a good time with you guys. So y'all have fun. Remember us little people. All right, so I have it in my press, and you see the puller's on. There we go. And this is what we were after. You know, this is your retainer. So before we go push our bearings on, I want to go ahead and put the studs in. And so there's no real magical way to put a stud in. The press is it kind of gets in the way. It's kind of hard to do. So I just use a heavy hammer. I'll put it in my vise, and I'll show you in a second. But kind of hold it flat so I'm not beating on the flange any more than I have to. And you just basically drive the stud into the back, and you'll hear it when it hits. It's got a different sound. You know, when you're driving a bearing against something, it'll have a different ting, for lack of a better word. But you'll know when you have a solid hit, and then you can go back and look and make sure that there's no gaps and that all your studs are seated. So we'll walk over to the vise and do that. Okay, again, I'll get on my vise, open it up a little. I'll get my stud in there, and I just try to hold my flange and my axle where it's riding on both sides of the vise, and so I'm not putting pressure on one side or the other. And then do your best to drive it straight down. I could tell it changed right then. And my stud is down. All right, do another one. Okay, our studs are installed. So now we can go ahead and get our bearing pushed on. And just a word of caution, advice. You buy a set of axles, you might want to check and make sure you've got the right axle. It's like, what I did is I sort of checked mine, lay you a straight edge across where your bearing seats, and then just measure down here to the back of your flange. This distance is important because this is what sets the center line of your brake shoes inside your drums. If you get that off, if it's too narrow, your drums will actually contact your backing plate. If they're too far out, then your pads are gonna be sticking out weird. So this is a very important measurement. It needs to be close because you'll have trouble. I've run into that in the past. Reason I'm saying. All right, let's do this. Your retainer, I just sort of already brushed this one up. You can tell this came out of the side that actually lost the bearing. Cause you see they drove this thing quite some way on a bad bearing. So the axle was actually cutting into this. It doesn't hurt this because all this does is hold the bearing in the housing. So I'm not worried about that rash. You won't see it because it's behind here anyways. The protruded portion goes towards the flange, like so. And then your bearing, that'll slide down. We'll get our bearing pushed on, and then our lock collar will come in behind it. So we'll do the bearing first, then the collar with the press. So when you set this up, you have your push bars, or the bars that you're pushing against. I like to make sure I have these on the inner race. It kind of sticks out below the bearing so I can still spin the bearing. I don't want to push on the bearing. It's the outer race itself. And that's there. You can see the gap's gone. All right. We just take our lock and do the same thing. All right, so that's in place, and now we'll just push it on. I turn these up, guys, just so I can make sure I've got this thing pushed up as tight as I can get it. And make sure we got a good seat. All right. The last thing you want is this axle to come sliding out, but you can look in here and see we're seated all the way up against that bearing. Bearing's good and tight, and we should be good to go. I turned these on end because I was afraid I might be getting a little bit of deflection in this plate, and in this direction you have a lot more strength. I know this was kind of a simple fix, and probably most of you guys can do this yourself, but it seems like when I skip something, somebody always asks about it. So as trivial as replacing axle bearings is, I wanted to go ahead and do it for you. And I had to do it anyway, so might as well film it and put it up. So I appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned. my rear bumper, I've been designing a tire carrier that's kind of different, and I'm kind of excited to build it. I've been rounding up all the parts. eBay, I got a few more things I'm still waiting to get here, but I'm doing a spring-loaded fold down instead of a swing out. I don't know, I kind of like the idea of it swinging down, and my girls can use it as a step into the Bronco. And anyways, you'll have to see it to understand sort of my vision right now. But that's going to be fun. That's coming up. And we're going to get back on this thing and try to keep moving forward. So thank you guys for supporting us. We're growing. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, and that's amazing. I never would have dreamed it. I thank you, and you guys continue to tell your friends. So until next time, you guys enjoy yourself, and thanks again for watching. And see you later. Bye.